Live from WTVO 17 and your home team. Eyewitness News at 5 starts now.
Vaccination efforts ramp up in Winnebago County with the opening of another site to get the shot. City leaders warn it will take more than getting the dose to keep the community healthy.
Raise your right hand, please.
The murder trial for former Minneapolis police officer Derrick Chauvin is underway. We recap opening arguments from prosecutors and Chauvin's defense.
Plus, Governor Pritzker plans a way to make farming more equitable. We'll explain how agriculture workers of color benefit from the new law. Good evening, I'm Mimi Murphy.
And I'm Eric Wilson. Rockford's west side sees increased efforts to expand COVID coverage.
The city's new vaccination site is at the New Zion Baptist Church on West Riverside. City leaders say this location is meant to get more people of color vaccinated. The announcement comes as Winnebago County is identified as a hot spot for a resurgence of a new COVID strain. Rockford's mayor says it's citizens' responsibility to keep the community healthy.
When you really look at the fight that we have the next 4 to 8 weeks, will tell a lot in our fight against COVID-19. We are seeing a slight increase in positivity rates, as Dr. Martell said, and in total cases and also in hospitalizations. But this time, I think, is a little different. Although we are named a hotspot, we actually have more tools at our disposal.
The site is expected to vaccinate 1,000 people a week. Hear more about that coming up tonight at 6.
Another local county adds to its total of fully vaccinated people. Stevenson County's health department wraps up another mass vaccination clinic. Michelle
Rave was there as folks bared their arms for the Johnson & Johnson dose. Michelle, health officials tell you they're pleased with the progress being made.
That's right, Eric and Mimi. Stevenson County has been focused on getting the most vulnerable in the population vaccinated. They say it's an important step as more people become eligible to get the COVID-19 vaccine. Monday, Stevenson County's health department held a mass vaccination clinic at Highland Community College in Freeport.
This clinic is a closed clinic because we wanted to really focus on that high-risk population, working on our 65 and above registration list, manufacturing, employment places that interact with the public, the grocery stores, the banks.
According to County Emergency Response Coordinator Bobby Barr, 550 people were given the Johnson & Johnson vaccine.
The demand has always been high. If anything, we struggle with the people that have been stopping by saying, I've been on the list, when's it my turn? And unfortunately, we don't have a great answer other than please be patient with us. We're doing everything we can.
Despite more people getting vaccinated, Barr says it's important you don't let your guard down.
The vaccine does not prevent you from getting it, but what it does is prevents you from getting the severe symptoms. Right now, the recommendation is if you're fully vaccinated, still continue wearing your mask when you're out in public and in groups. While you may be protected, there's still a possibility that you could transmit the virus to somebody else who hasn't been vaccinated, and then they could get sick.
Barr says the health department is working hard to finish vaccinating the high-risk population. That will then allow anyone else that wants a vaccine to get one.
We're making great strides in reaching out to the community because we know the demand is there and we want to get everybody who wants it. As of April 12th, the whole state will open up, and at that point you will see a lot more of the open clinics where anybody can get the appointments and things like that.
The Stevenson County Health Department plans to hold more mass vaccination clinics. The goal is to eventually allow residents to set up their own appointments. Eric.
Thank you, Michelle. Health officials in Boone County are also making headway in their vaccination efforts. That county's health department reported a positive response from target groups like those 65 and older, members of the Hispanic and Latino communities. Health leaders have worked to answer questions and straighten out myths surrounding the shot, such as its contents and whether it's safe or not.
Our biggest challenge with our Hispanic Latino population is making sure that they're aware of what sites are available to them, which priority group they fall in, answering some of their frequently asked questions about some of the myths that are circulating within that community about the vaccine.
Boone County's Hispanic community is trending around 9% vaccination rate. Statewide, that number's 10%. Health officials hope it will bump up with extra outreach efforts like appearances on Latino radio shows.
Rockford police spent the weekend taking several guns off the streets. Friday night, Scope officers completed a traffic stop on East State near Johnston Avenue, where a loaded handgun was recovered. A few hours later, police broke up a house party. 2 armed suspects ran away. Officers caught up with and arrested a 17-year-old boy who had a loaded gun. Saturday, another man was charged with reckless discharge of a firearm after firing a gun in his yard. And last night, officers were called to a shooting scene on 16th Avenue where they recovered a loaded gun. 4 people were arrested during that span of time. Anyone with information regarding these incidents is urged to contact police. The trial of former Minneapolis police officer Derrick Chauvin is underway. Chauvin faces charges of second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter in the death of George Floyd. The prosecution played the video showing Chauvin with his knee pressed into Floyd's neck as Floyd and bystanders cried for help. The defense said they will make the case that there's more to what happened than what is shown in the video.
Derrick Chauvin did exactly what he had been trained to do over the course of his 19-year career. The use of force is not attractive, but it is a necessary component of policing.
Mr. Derrick Chauvin betrayed this badge when he used excessive and unreasonable force upon the body of Mr. George Floyd.
Chauvin's defense team argues the former officer's actions were not based on race and that Floyd had drugs in his system when he died.
Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker visits a high school just outside Kankakee. He was there to celebrate a new law he says will benefit black farmers. Under the new law, the U.S. Department of Agriculture will study the differences in land ownership, access to education, and economic outcomes between black and white farmers. 100 years ago, there were nearly 1 million black farmers in the United States. Today, there are roughly 45,000.
We all know that history, culture, and yes, federal and state policies of the past have decimated once thriving black farming communities. This is a monumental opportunity to help ensure that we're building equity and generational wealth for black farmers in the agriculture industry.
Those findings will be delivered to the state within the next year.
A state-line property management company continues to buy up real estate downtown. Urban Equity Properties recently announced the purchase of a 5-story commercial building at 700 South Main Street. The 60-unit building will be called Water Power Lofts. UEP says the property was transformed from W.A. Whitney Company. Renovations are set to begin later this year and wrap up by 2023. This is the latest purchase made by the management group. UEP is set to break ground on a separate South Main project this May.
Time's running out to apply to become a Rockford first responder. Rockford's fire department is looking to hire more firefighters and paramedics. The agency's taking applications through next Monday. Applicants must be between 21 and 35, have a high school diploma, and hold a valid driver's license. Use the My State Line mobile app to see other requirements and find a link to apply. Today marks the start of Stand Up for Grain Safety Week. Every year, hundreds of people across Illinois get trapped in grain bins. That can be deadly. Dave Newcomb, an instructor at the Illinois Fire Service Institute, says grain acts like quicksand. A worker standing on moving grain can be trapped within just 5 seconds, fully covered in less than 30. Grain bin rescues are low-frequency, high-risk situations for both farm workers and first responders.
We're seeing some trends too that more and more first responders don't have a rural background, so they don't fully understand the hazards that are out there. And that grain bin doesn't care if you're the first responder, a family member, or anybody. If it can get you, it will.
Newcomb says workers should always turn off powered equipment before entering a grain bin. Workers should also have a second person with them who can call for help.
With Easter and other spring holidays approaching, the director of the CDC expresses concern.
After the break, President Biden echoes doctors' worries with the threat of another surge in cases looming.
Plus, the State Line School District and University team up to grow the next generation of teachers. Coming up at 6, the program that will have some students calling Rockford home.
A big jump in our temperatures from where we started off at this morning to where we ended up at here this afternoon, but it's come with a price, the wind. Find out how long that wind sticks around and when we could see some changes on the horizon. All coming up in your most trusted forecast a little later.
You're watching Eyewitness News, your home team with Eric Wilson, Mimi Murphy, Sports Director Scott Leber, and Chief Meteorologist Candice King.
President Joe Biden announced today the administration's pushing for more Americans to get vaccinated.
Washington correspondent Alexandra Limon tells us the announcement comes as infections climb in the country. She's keeping you connected to the nation's capital.
Good evening. Today, President Joe Biden announced a record number of vaccines have been administered over the past 3 days, 10 million in total. But the president says more needs to be done by everyone because we're also seeing an increase in COVID-19 cases.
The war against COVID-19 is far from won.
President Joe Biden announced his administration is redoubling its efforts to get Americans vaccinated, calling it a life and death race with the virus that is spreading quickly.
With cases rising again, new variants are spreading.
But right now, I'm scared.
CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky asked Americans to hold off on returning to normal a little longer until more Americans are vaccinated.
So that all of those people that we all love will still be here when this pandemic ends.
The president urged Americans to continue using safety measures and mayors and governors to reinstate mask mandates.
Mask up. Mask up. It's a patriotic duty.
The president says the administration is doing its part too by expanding eligibility and access.
By April 19th, 3 weeks from today, 90% of adults, people over 18 and over, will be eligible to get vaccinated.
And over the past week, the number of COVID-19 cases in the U.S. rose by 10% compared to the week before. And the number of hospitalizations and deaths is also up, in part because of an increase in travel due to spring break. Reporting in Washington, Alexandra Limon.
Now, your first warned weather forecast with Chief Meteorologist Candice King.
Well, the wind has definitely been the big story for us for much of this afternoon. In fact, winds really ramping up here over the last several hours, and that's why we still have that wind advisory in effect until 8 o'clock, and that red flag warning, which is that elevated fire risk because of those strong winds. Look at that wind gust in Galena, almost to 50 miles per hour. Last hour, it was at 52. We've had those pretty common winds gusting close to 45, even 50 miles per hour, kind of ramping up as we've had a little bit more mixing take place because of all the sunshine here for us. Sustained winds coming in straight from the south, which has made travel very difficult for those high-profile vehicles, even just regular vehicles on the east-west roads coming in at about 30 miles per hour. We'll continue to see the sunshine, and unfortunately that wind is going to stay strong over the next several hours. It will start to come down a bit, but likely not until we get closer to the midnight hour. Even notice through tomorrow morning, winds still close to 30 miles per hour as we start to see that wind direction shift a little bit around to the west. Now, because of the strong wind and the dry vegetation, we've actually had several grass and brush fires reported throughout the area today. So with that still in effect, gotta just limit the outdoor burning and be careful if you're out and you throw those cigarette butts out there. Just don't do that. Don't do it in general, but just don't do it today. Reason why we've had the wind, because we've had a little bit of a squeeze play going on. Rapidly intensifying low pressure system up to the north in Canada, followed by high pressure over the southeast, has really allowed those winds to strengthen from the southwest. Well, yes, it's brought us that sunshine. It's also come with that wind. Now, that cold front comes through tomorrow, brings us a slight chance for a couple of showers late into the afternoon and evening, but we're also going to notice a drop in those temperatures. Our temperatures are going to fall a good 20 to 25 degrees colder come Tuesday night, Wednesday, and Thursday compared to where we are right now. 67 our temperature in Rockford, 64 in Freeport, 62 now in Dixon, and we're 63 degrees in Rochelle. Plenty of sunshine out there. Blue skies as far as the eye can see. A live look with our Mercy House SkyTrack camera now out in Freeport at the Park Hills Golf Course. And that clear sky, that does stay with us as we go through the night tonight. Big ridge of high pressure over the plains, Midwest, Great Lakes. That'll stay with us here tonight, but that storm system moves in by the time we head towards tomorrow morning. Not going to be a lot. In fact, likely all we'll see from it are just a few clouds that'll be on the increase by sunrise tomorrow. We'll be in and out of that cloud cover for much of the afternoon. Notice an increase, though, in clouds late into the afternoon and evening. And that's when we could see a quick passing shower, but that chance may stay a little more to our east and southeast during the evening. We'll keep those clouds around Tuesday night. Colder air comes in for Wednesday. Likely we'll see skies turn partly cloudy Wednesday afternoon. afternoon as that colder air rushes in. Temperatures Wednesday and Thursday will be down into the lower 40s, and those overnight lows will be dropping back into the 20s. But the numbers will be warming here, guys, as we head towards the end of the week. We'll see highs back into the 50s on Friday, 60s come Saturday, and could be topping the 70s once we get closer to Easter Sunday. Next chance for rain outside of tomorrow, Eric and Mimi, look to arrive early next week.
Mimi's initial reaction to that 7-day forecast? 71!
Yeah, that looks great.
That does look great at the end of
Yeah.
there. Thanks, Candice.
Scott's in next to talk sports.
The Bulls' first game with their new big man did not go so well. Scott weighs in on what we should make of that.
Now, the Napleton Sports Desk with Sports Director Scott Leber.
The excitement over the Bulls' flurry of trades last week that brought in Nikola Vucevic fizzled some over the weekend when the Bulls lost badly in their first game with him at center. They lost to the Spurs by 16 points Saturday night. Vucevic did his part by contributing 21 points and 9 rebounds. So what does that game prove about the acquisition of Vucevic? Nothing. I mean, the Bulls' downfall Saturday was a bad shooting night, especially by Zach LaVine and Lauri Markkanen. They made only 7 of 21 shots from the field. It's going to take some time for the Bulls to adjust to playing with Vucevic. It's a different style of ball now with a legitimate offensive presence inside. The Nets, look at them. They went through an adjustment period at first when they traded for James Harden. The Lakers started slowly when they first added LeBron James. Even the Miami Heat, back with the big three of LeBron, D. Wade, and Chris Bosh, barely played 500 ball the first month they were together a decade ago. No team sport is more about chemistry than basketball is. The Bulls players will eventually adjust. Billy Donovan and his staff will figure out how to best utilize Vucevic and fit him into the puzzle. So don't be disappointed if the Bulls don't look good again tonight when they play the Warriors. I will add, though, that for the Bulls to step up to a playoff level, they need more than Vucevic to deliver. The pressure is on Markkanen and Patrick Williams to elevate their games. Well, Max Kaler has gotten the attention of the racing community around the Midwest, and now the Caledonian teenager is getting national attention. He's one of 7 young racers around the country who've been selected for the Alan Kulwicki Driver Development Program. Kulwicki was the 1992 NASCAR Cup champion. He died the following year in an aircraft accident. Kulwicki's family decided to keep alive his legacy by starting up this driver development program. What it means for Kaler is some added financial backing, but more importantly, more exposure. Simply being named in the program does that. Plus, the Kulwicki Driver Development Program will help him establish a stronger network of contacts and partnerships in the racing community. Racing is a sport where you can be an extremely talented driver, but if you don't have the exposure and those contacts, you have no shot at climbing the ladder that could eventually lead to the Truck Series, Xfinity Series, or ultimately the Cup Series. So this is a big deal for Kaler. Congrats to him. I'll have his reaction tonight at 9 and 10. That's my take. We'll be right back.